Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I have been reading a lot of Reddit lately, especially entitled parents, but made a new account when I came across this page. I never thought I'd actually try to contribute something. Until now, Reddit has just been my guilty morning coffee read. So here goes. I'm an only son. My mom died of ovarian cancer at only 55 years old. It broke my dad's heart. They have been together since college and were the same age, with my dad being a month older. I'm 22 and I'm about to graduate college with my degree in chemistry when the main events start to occur. I went to college on a full-ride scholarship. This is important later. My dad met my now stepmom when she was my mom's nurse at the hospital where she spent her final days. My stepmom, Grace, played all the right notes to gain my dad's trust. She was empathetic to him, nurturing, comforting after my mom passed, and I was 17 and old enough to sense that she was just trying to weasel her way into getting my dad's resources, but it was up to my dad if he wanted to be in a relationship with her. I was in my final year of public school and had just won a scholarship to attend college out of the country the following year. My dad mourned my mom for a year, and that whole time Grace would check in on him by phone every month or so, and in my opinion to scope out the possibility of sinking her hooks in him. After a year passed, Grace took the gloves off and went hard after my dad. Grace was only 40 when she and my dad started seeing each other. I didn't like her, but at the same time my dad at least didn't seem so depressed anymore. So I tried to be less pessimistic about her and give her the benefit of the doubt. In my gut, I did not trust her though. But we are Scandinavian, and at least in my family the son does not tell his father what to do, or even offer any opinion. Grace is from Czech Republic, if you're wondering. My father was a very successful banker during his career, and amassed quite a portfolio of wealth. I'll spare you the details, but after 6 months of dating, Grace and my father are married. My dad never really got over my mom though, and he was getting weaker and weaker even though he was only 57. Since his health was fading, he called me to him and asked me point blank, "Boy, what do you need to set you up in this life?" I told him I don't need anything. I'm a man and can take care of myself. But what are you even talking about, Dad? You're going to be around for decades yet. I did remind him that he had living sisters with children, my aunts and cousins. I also reminded him that I had a full scholarship to college, so don't worry about giving me any cash. He was dead, only a year later at 59. I of course have seen lots of Hollywood movies, so I consider the conspiracy theory that maybe my dad's nurse wife poisoned him and made him sign over all his money to her. But I really, honestly don't think that's what happened. Other relatives didn't like Grace either, but they knew my dad was totally in love with my mom and that her death utterly broke him. Well, long story short, my dad bequeathed his 5-bedroom house to me, even though I wasn't expecting it and didn't ask for it. He gave a small endowment to each of his sisters and their children. He left about 80% of all his existing money to Grace, which amounted to several hundreds of thousands of dollars. My dad ignored me because he's generous to a fault and still gave me several tens of thousands of dollars, which were, of course, very useful to me. Grace tried to put on a friendly front, but I could tell she was angry as hell that she didn't get my dad's house too. That belonged to me, and I had the legal papers to prove it. She was especially mad because we live in an extremely upscale and trendy location, and houses are hard to come by and easily sold for massive profit. During the first few months after my dad's death, I had the nauseating, creepy experience of knowing that Grace was trying to feel me out to see if I might be into a little relationship with her. Gross. She still stayed at the house though because Over the last 3 years, she had gotten used to living there and acting like she owned it. And even though I officially owned it, I was always away at college and only visited my dad's old house once every couple of months. And even then, it wasn't to see Grace, but to see my cousins who lived just a few miles away. I downplayed the fact that it was really my house, and over the months I think Grace gradually forgot that she really had no legal right to the house. She probably believed that sooner or later, because I never asked her for any of the hundreds of thousands of my dad's dollars that she now had, that I was somehow independently wealthy, I would just give up my house to her. I knew I'd eventually hydrogen bomb this witch when she started dating some new guy only 5 months after my dad was in the ground. At one time when I came home from college after graduating, she and her new boyfriend, some sleazy looking d-bag named Evan, who was only a few years older than me, were acting like I was a guest in my own house and that they owned it. I played along, and Grace told me she gave away my PlayStation 4 to Evan's cousin because I'm too old to play with video games. I don't even know this piece of trash, and you give him my PS4 to give away to some other crap who I also don't know? I quickly changed all my network passwords that same day. I smiled, but I knew what I had to do eventually. She also said that she and Evan were getting married because I just can't mourn your father forever. I have to move on with life. I tell her that I graduated college and already secured employment with a local firm and will soon find a new place to live. She looks thrilled, especially the part where it looks like I'll soon have a new place to live. Then, in a patronizing way, she tells me, "You always have a place in our house, though. You are welcome to stay whenever you please." Thanks, Grace. Really generous of you. What I really say is that I will probably have a new place in 3 months. She says that is wonderful because she intends to go to her homeland to have a wedding with Evan and afterward have her honeymoon. She assures me it's a local affair, otherwise I'd invite you, honey. And anyway, I know you're so busy. I congratulate her. She asks me if I can watch the house for her. Watch my own house? Sure. What I really say is, of course, I will take care of the house. I'm careful to not say your house. She and her D-bag fiance, who I'm 100% sure is only there for Grace's money, go on their trip, and I immediately put out advertisements and rental websites offering to lease my house. I hire movers and have all of Grace's furniture and possessions boxed up and put into a storage rental facility. I retain all of my parents' furniture that they had before my dad met Grace. Locks changed. All of them. Within days. I'm inundated with dozens of inquiries regarding my amazing furnished house with fantastic views. I rent it to a wonderful young family. A barrister and his school teacher wife and their 2 preteen children. They pay me their first and last month's rent and sign a lease for a year. I warn them about my lazy stepmom who thinks that is her house, but I present them with contact information to my lawyer, the same lawyer my dad retained, in case they need any assurance that I'm on a level. I also give my lawyer the information about the storage facility, including the fact that I generously paid 4 months of storage in advance, which is a whole month longer than Grace's chick honeymoon adventure. I then found a great apartment in the city near my new place of work. There I met a woman in a restaurant I frequent at night after a long work day. We have been dating 6 months now and are engaged to be married. Grace, of course, tried to shriek and cause trouble when she realized she got kicked out of my own house, but my lawyer quickly shut her mouth without me having to ever speak to her garbage face again. From what I hear, she and her trash husband left the country, and I assume they are plowing through my dad's money and will soon be broke like Javs usually become when they taste a little bit of what they think is a good life. So maybe Grace will go and try to exploit some other lonely man into giving her his money. Speaking of money, the house that I rent out is generating so much money that I not only am able to help pay for my cousin's college, but I moved into a larger apartment of my own together with my fiancé. I love my job, but really, I could survive solely on renting my dad's old house. And to think if Grace had only been cooler and nicer, I might have let her stay at the house, just to be a good sport. And definitely if she stayed the hell out of my room. But no, she had to act all propriety, so I had to make her homeless as a wedding gift. Postscript. I bought another PS4 even though I didn't even use my old one that much. It didn't matter. It wasn't for Grace to give away. You don't give away other people's things. You give away your own things. Which is why I chose to kick Grace out of my house because, well, it's mine. And I decide who stays there. As I stood in my backyard watching my husband, Michael, grill up some burgers, a feeling of relief swept over me and I couldn't help but embrace it. After months of worry and anxiety, he was finally home from his deployment overseas, and we were surrounded by friends and family who had come to celebrate with us. It had been a long and difficult deployment for Michael. As a relatively high-ranking military officer, he had been stationed in some of the most dangerous parts of the world, often going days or even weeks without being able to communicate with me or his family. I had spent many sleepless nights wondering if he was okay, if he was safe, and if he was ever going to come home. But now as we gathered together in our backyard, those worries were far behind us, at least for now. The sun was shining, the sky was clear, and the smell of grilled meat filled the air. Our friends and family were laughing and chatting, enjoying each other's company and catching up on old times. It was a moment of pure happiness and relief, a moment that I would never forget. But then suddenly we were hit with a cold splash of water. At first, we all thought it was just one of our friends being playful, but as we turned to look, we saw our entitled neighbor Karen holding her water hose, with a smug look on her face. "What the hell, Karen?" I yelled, wiping water from my face. "Oh, sorry, not sorry," she smirked. "I was just trying to cool you guys off a bit." "Karen, this is not funny." Michael spoke up, his tone firm. "We're having a party here. You can't just splash us with water." "You guys are so loud, and I'm so done with you." I felt enraged as Karen continued to taunt us. She had always been a thorn on our side, constantly complaining about everything from our dogs barking to the color of our house. But this was too much. "Get out of here, Karen," I snapped. "We don't want you here. Leave us alone." Karen rolled her eyes and turned to walk away. But as she did, she picked up her pace and ran towards us, wielding her hose like a weapon. I could see her eyes were wild with anger, and I knew we were in trouble. "Karen, what the hell are you doing?" Michael shouted, stepping in front of me to shield me, but it was too late. Karen had already sprayed us with her hose, soaking us from head to toe. I could hear our guests screaming and shouting as they tried to get out of the line of fire. That's when Karen made her biggest mistake. She called the police on us, claiming that we were harassing her and that we were making too much noise. As we waited for the police to arrive, we huddled together trying to calm ourselves down and prepare for the worst. When the police finally arrived, Karen was still ranting and raving, insisting that we were the ones at fault. But as the officers listened to our side of the story and saw the wet mess that was our backyard, they quickly realized that Karen was the one in the wrong. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for assaulting your neighbors," one of the officers said, pulling out a pair of handcuffs. Karen protested and screamed, but it was no use. She had finally gotten what was coming to her. It had been a long and difficult deployment for my husband, and the last thing we needed was some entitled neighbor ruining our celebration. But in the end, at least justice was served. For context, hi, I'm Kirar, or as of late Delta Kruger. I'm the 27-year-old lad of this story. I'm considered a high-functioning autistic individual, officially disabled by government standards. For a long time my mother, but especially these past 4 years, has been taken in and managing my checks for the government to keep the household afloat, making use of everything but $100 of it, which often got absorbed in moments of crisis as well, since I didn't spend much. While doing so, she was sowing seeds of doubt and fear into my mind about ever learning to live on my own, stating that I was very far from ever reaching that. I myself didn't really try to struggle or push my way out. Even when I turned 18, she offered to sign me up as a dependent, but I thankfully declined. I decided for the good of the family to keep working with them. That changed about 4 years ago. 4 years ago, my developmentally held back brain decided to say, oh, now it's time to be a teenager, and I suddenly craved independence, looking every which way for a way to flee gracefully. Every time, though, there was some unfortunate situation or action that meant that if I left with my two incomes, my mother became my PSW, which that has its own irony later on. The family would fall apart, and I'd be dooming all the animals, some of which were never listed on our lease at the time and were hidden every inspection. Now, what happens when you cage a teenager that so desperately wants to be their own thing? They get rebellious. 3 years ago, I got a therapist through my state insurance program, and after venting all the hoops my mom was making me jump through and all the work that was piled on me due to my mother's bum knee and the stupidly high expectations of me that would always end up creating screaming matches with her over those 3 years, she finally said to me roughly a week ago from this post, "That literally sounds like an abuse case." I initially dismissed that and said I will keep it in mind as we ended the call that day, only to then immediately after get chewed out for jumping on a request my mom made earlier in the day, as she had requested research for something that would make another lengthy story, but regardless, she basically chewed me out for hounding her in an ill mental state due to the current situation despite telling me 5 minutes prior to do the research for her. And that's when I went back to my room and texted my therapist to start filling out the paperwork. 1 day later, Mom and I got into another spat, this time about the dishes, which were my daily chore. Sure, it was assigned to me, but my drive to do crap for her was dead by that time, when my effort could be shot down on a whim, even though it was practically ordered. The argument is hazy in my head for many reasons, but the main one is Mom went too feral the moment I snarked like a teen would. She slammed her way into my room to start grabbing crap and hucking it on the lawn, screaming for me to get out, breaking one of the monitors in the process. Dad stepped in and told her that since I was over 18 and on a lease, I was legally given 30 days notice, which is when she stopped, turned to me, said, "Well, then I'm gonna make those next 30 days hell for you," and walked to her room. That let me get the few things she did get on the lawn back inside at that point, and I sat down at my chair. Then it dawned on me. She played herself. For years she said that if I went away, she would have to get rid of everything. And I mean everything. It was all propped up by my SSI, and the income she got being my personal support worker. Well, now she had given me and the government valid reason was her behavior alone that even if she rescinded the 30-day notice, we couldn't keep our home anyways. It was refreshing. In that moment, I felt courage well up in my chest. She couldn't manipulate me anymore. She fell into what she had made of her life and was blind to my connections I made for years outside the family. I took that renewed energy to reach out to those friends, those found families, my lovers, and even my grandparents. I looked through my cards and emails, found my disabilities care workers information, and told of the situation. I burned the midnight oil chasing my new life, while my mom literally pounded the adjacent wall between my bedroom and her bathroom, screaming like a banshee about not hearing me back fast enough. To keep this from going on for ages, I'm gonna be brief on the next few stages too. Now, Grandparents saw this explosion brewing for years, opened their arms and let me take my belongings and my bearded dragon pancake. While my mother was away on psychiatric care, I got my SSDI under control, got guidance on what steps to take next, and they are doing research for intermediary places after grandparents. My boyfriend and I are looking into joining together and living somewhere in Washington, with my found family chipping in as well. As of today, I'm officially disowned from my family. My mother has not only disowned my grandparents but also forced that too as well. I tried to contact them to drop me off the phone plan so I can keep my phone number, and all I got was a statement of disownment and that further contact will lead to a restraining order. I got a special state-related order to have their firearms reclaimed since my mother is a psychopath, and my grandparents are now locking their doors out of fear. I'm waiting for my case manager to get back to me to have my documents extracted from their residence, and basically all I have to do is play the waiting game, watching my parents burn cause mom pushed all their connections away. Even my brother, who's stoic as all hell, showed he was ready to fly too. So the main thing to take away from this is, learn to value yourself and judge the words of those even closest to you. For you never know if you're just a pay pig to your own mother. If people want, I can refine those breezed over parts. But that's enough to get the picture. P.S. As I was printing the paperwork to file for the firearm removal, I realized I still had access to the printer back home. It took all my willpower to not print a screw you message to it. And instead, I just disconnected my PC from the web-accessible printer. Despite blaming me for everything falling apart, she was the one who kicked me out, and I was always taught to not have the last word. Day 2. I have softly realized that if I'm going to be posting an update, it is best to do both a comment version and an addition to the original post through editing. Long story short, the paperwork I filled, I just turned in. Got a court time in about 2 hours, zero court experience whatsoever, so I'm going by the seat of my pants. If it goes well though, my grandparents and I can sleep a little safer, knowing that if they get retaliatory, they'll have to do it with sticks and stones and not guns.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.